Evergreen Heart. By Oprian. Chapter 36. Unexpect the expected. The world felt heavy, like a lead weight pressing in from every side. Simply breathing was a struggle, as if he was breathing in molasses. He wasn't in any danger of suffocating, as whatever he was breathing in was hyper-oxygenated, but it still felt like pushing a boulder up a slope. It was a task that left him feeling exhausted, despite being asleep for most of the time. His eyelids refused to obey his desire to open them, as if some pony had taped them shut. When he finally managed to wrestle them open, the world outside was a blurry sea in various shades of green. His head felt groggy, his thoughts a sluggish jumble. He vaguely recalled a dream where he was on a lovely date with a pretty mare. Her presence made him feel all warm and fuzzy in his chest. They were just about to kiss when that warmth was suddenly replaced with a lump of ice, and he was pulled from the dream. He tried to move, but his hooves hit something hard yet pliable. He pushed, getting a few inches before the transparent surface sprang back. He tried to see what was on the other side, but it was hard to peer through the green haze. Fear was starting to worm its way into his chest. Fear at being trapped here, possibly forever. He saw moving shapes of black and green, then suddenly a nightmarish face appeared in front of him, its cold bluish eyes glared at him with a fanged sneer, and he felt panic grip him. Mandible let out a frustrated growl as he glared at the panicking pony in the pod. Damnation, number 58 is awake, again. Now the whole batch is contaminated with fear. I told you grubs to drain them slower. He barked at the others who were working on extracting love. The cavernous room they were in was filled with almost 6 dozen cocoons that lined the walls, each holding a captive sleeping pony. The walls themselves were covered with a hard organic resin that smoothed out the surface and strengthened the cavern so it wouldn't collapse under its own weight. The center of the room was occupied by a large, pulsating fleshy growth the size of an elephant that hung from the ceiling. A tumorous lump, connected to all the cocoons by rubbery-looking, veiny tubes. From the bottom of the thing hung translucent fleshy sacs, like fat teardrops, that contained a shimmering pink liquid. Except now that same liquid had cloudy patches of blue swirling through it. Disconnect this one. Mandible barked at Axilla, who quickly did as instructed. Simply slicing through the rubbery vein that connected the pod to the extractor. A few spurts of blue fluid leaked out of the vein before the glow of the cocoon dimmed, and the pony inside fell back into a fitful slumber. Mandible rubbed at his eyes with a frustrated groan. We have to slow down the extraction process. We are going to damage the livestock at this pace. We can't, said Freenham. Swarm leader Nathian demands we increase production. We must produce enough love to aid in our queen's recovery. Her wounds are grave. If we deliver contaminated love, it's only going to hinder her recovery. Mandible retorted. We have no choice. 3 more locations have been raided in the past 2 weeks. We have lost over a third of our livestock. We must increase production if we are to meet our quota. Mandible groaned in misery. Despite the loss of their son Princess, and the destruction of the Canterlet hive, the ponies seemed more determined than ever. Not only were they rebuilding in a new, and thus far impenetrable location, but they had begun a systematic campaign to recover their missing brood, and destroy their extraction nests. So far they had not located the main hive, but several outlying extractor nests had been raided and destroyed over the course of the last few months. Leaving few, if any, survivors. No, if we increase production any further it will damage or kill the livestock. With our mounting losses we cannot afford to. But our queen. We'll have to make do. We're extraction specialists, not miracle workers. We can't make the impossible happen. Now. Reset the extractor and purge the contaminated love. Let the livestock dream for a few hours and we'll start again, and get it right this time. *. The woods here were full of magic. Most places in Equestria were to a larger or smaller degree. None so much as the Everfree though. Compared to the Everfree, this place seemed almost starved of it. Still there was enough ambient magic in the air to play havoc with my sight. As if my current task wasn't difficult enough already, the constant chatter behind me served as yet another distraction. We made camp in a small clearing to rest. We were only using dimmed firefly lanterns so as not to give away our position with a campfire. "What's he doing?" I heard the newcomer, Wrangler, ask from behind me. "Tartarus if I know. Probably talking to the trees or some such." "I don't ask," said our sergeant, Barricade. "But, he's just staring into the darkness." "What?" I said to the open air, feigning confusion. "The ponies? No, you can't eat them. I saw them first." The slightest of eeps was my reward, making me grin a little more ghoulishly than I should. "He's just pulling your tail, rookie," Rainsong said dismissively to the newcomer. "So we think," grumbled Tarj as he absently stirred his soup. A fish-based thing that while warming and nutritious was more akin to tuna paste. "Blat. Can I ask, what is it you see exactly?" asked Wrangler. I pointed up at the stars. "Imagine as if all the stars in the sky had come down and taken the place of every tree, shrub, and flower. That's what I see when I open myself to the energy of the forest. Add to that a constant stream of colors from ambient magic and you have one heck of a light show. That must be amazing," she said. I smiled. "It is. It makes everything look beyond beautiful. Not as beautiful as the one sight I long for the most right now though," I thought to myself as my mind drifted to images of Trixie. Especially that time she was taking an impromptu dip in the river when we were following the dragon migration. Her wet mane all sparkling like mother of pearl. I shook my head rapidly to banish the thought from my mind. Now was not the time for such things. I instead resumed my search, all the while keeping an eye on the rest of the group. There were 10 of us. An odd mixture of ponies, both from the guard and civilian specialist. Wrangler was just one of 3 newcomers. She's apparently an expert in animal handling, a skilled tracker, and she's no slouch with a rope either. We also had 2 new guards ponies join the group after some of our veterans sustained injuries on the last trip into the wilds. One of them fresh out of the new guard academy. And then there was me, of course. I still can't believe I let Luna and Trixie talk me into this. Joining the guard of all things, even if it's just a temporary assignment. Like I didn't have enough work to do back in Evergrove. "Best not to eat and drink too much, rookie, it will slow your body down, and you will need to be on the ball once we find the nest," Barricade told the newbie, who was scarfing down his rations. "How do we even know it's around here?" "Oh, it's here," I said. "How can you be so sure?" "Well, for one, we've had numerous reports of activity in this area. And for 2, I just located the entrance. We got a live nest." My words sent a ripple of adrenaline through the group. Each of them scrambled to get to their hooves as they reached for their weapons. Barricade started barking orders. "You all know your jobs. Glider, Rainsong, cover the skies. Wrangler, Bullseye, you watch out for traps and any additional tracks. Phalanx, Iron Hooves, Tarj, you cover the rear. We don't want any surprises. Rookie, you're sticking close to me. Evergreen, you take point, lead us there. I swear, princess or no, I will strangle Luna for insisting I use that as a code name. Never should have given her the details of our stay in Zebrica. Quit your belly aching and get us to that nest, Evergreen." "Aye, sir." I grumbled with a half-hearted salute. Asterisk. Their security was pitiful. Only 2 drones guarded the entrance. 2 crossbow bolts into each of them took them out without them having the chance to raise an alarm. Iron Hooves and Tarj stayed behind outside, under cover of an illusion spell to make them appear as changelings. The rest of us descended into the nest. As far as nests go, this one was rather small. The previous ones we raided were much larger and complex. Some even had tunnels that seemed to shift at random, with doors appearing out of nowhere. This one was barely more than a goop-covered natural cavern. And there were barely any guards. After we leveled so many of their hives already, you would expect them to beef up security and stage an army at this place. Either they operate under the assumption that we won't be able to find their remaining nests, or they lack the manpower to send out more than a token security force, after we devastated both their armies in Canterlot and at Ponyville. Soon enough we found our way down to the main chamber. It reminded me too much of aliens. Never mind the fact that changelings are a lot more xenomorph-like in appearance than I'm comfortable with. Seriously, why couldn't they be harmless looking like the actual show? The multiverse just loves to fuck with me. I must have kicked an awful lot of puppies in a previous life. Looks like there's only a hoof full of them. Phalanx whispered. These don't look like warriors, whispered Wrangler. Bet you they are workers, like that lot from the previous nest. We can take 'em, no problem. Rainsong said, gunning for a fight. She reminded me a lot of Dash, the way she acted. All brash and full of fire. They might be workers, but they can still shapeshift into much stronger combat forms. We need a plan. Barricade hissed. We're wasting time, I said, standing up. Evergreen, what are you doing? Get back here. I'm gonna go for it. I wanna wrap this up and get home, I said, stepping out into the chamber. Celestia's teats, get back here. He growled, but I ignored him. Stepping out into the chamber, I transformed back into my humanoid form, which immediately got the attention of every drone in the chamber. They rose up and hissed at me, several getting ready to pounce. I casually raised a hand, causing the entire chamber to shake and tremble with a brief tremor. You should all know who I am, but for those that don't, I am the guardian of the Everfree. I am the green terror that butchered most of your forces that laid siege to Ponyville. I've come here by order of Princess Luna, with a strike team of ponies to liberate your captives and to take you prisoner. Some of them looked to their fellow changelings, making faint clicking noises or fluttering their wings. A couple of things are going to happen in the next minute or two. One of you bugs is going to be stupid and try to attack me. That bug is going to end up with a mostly broken body, but they'll be alive. I scanned their faces as I continued to speak. Then, one of you, thinking they're smart, is going to threaten the lives of the hostages, your livestock, demanding that I back the fuck off. That bug is going to end up very, very dead. And it's going to be gruesome. I'm going to swallow that changeling with a giant fly trap, and then slowly melt him or her into soup. Once that happens, the rest of you will hopefully wise up, and surrender. Now I made a bet with my fellow guard that you lot are smarter than the idiots guarding the last nest we raided, and that you will choose to skip to step 3 rather than go through step 1 and 2. So I'm asking you all to do me a solid. Because you guys make terribly tasting soup for one, but also because I like winning bets. What do you say? The changelings looked back and forth between themselves. Then, one by one they chose to lay down on the floor and roll onto their backs, waiting to be cuffed. Good answer. The rest went like clockwork. The changelings were made to form up in the central chamber. The manacles they wore were custom made for their multi-limbed anatomy. An added feature was a magic dampening rune added personally by Twilight. The result left them lethargic, and mildly feverish, as if struck by a sudden onset of the flu. Beats the alternative, which would be me biting their limbs off. I've done that enough times to develop an aversion for it. Changeling flesh tastes terrible. It's like fish that has gone off. Oi, Evergreen. Barricade came stomping up to me. I don't care if you're on a first-name basis with the princess. Tartarus, you could be secretly betting her for all I care, but the next time you disobey a direct order from me I'll toss you into a wood chipper before I send you back to her, you get me, soldier? I was so surprised by the vitriol in his voice I barely managed to answer him with a yes sir. He let out a sigh. Look, you did good in getting them to surrender, but next time wait for us to have a plan B before you pull a stunt like that, all right? I don't want to be the one to tell the princess that you ended up blown to bits because you got cocky. I nodded and he gave me a friendly smack in the shoulder. Keep an eye on them while we extract the hostages, he nodded to the prisoners. I gave him a salute and watched him join the rest of the team as they pulled ponies from the cocoons. A voice from behind me spoke up and I turned to the drone that had addressed me. Its voice was distinctly female, though the form is altogether identical to the other drones around her. Lord Evergreen, she asked. I'm not a lord, there's no need to address me as such. I said casually. What is it? Forgive this ling's impertinence, but, she paused before looking to the small litter of chattering changelings sitting behind her. What is to become of us? What is your name? Cricket, sir. Well, Cricket, I won't lie to you. There's going to be questions. We need any and all information on other holdouts you can provide. I highly suggest you comply, because resistance is futile. As I say the last part, my voice changes to emulate that famous Borg line. She cringes a bit at that, clearly unsettled. Heedless of her discomfort, I continue in my normal voice. After that, I understand that an internment colony has been set up in the Badlands. You will be transported there once your debriefing is over. The Badlands, she stammered. I nodded. All things considered, it's not that bad. Despite the name. Asterisk. Once all the prisoners were free, we led everyone above ground. The civvies were frightened and disoriented after being cocooned for so long. But they cooperated without much fuss. And so did the lings. Once above ground, we sent up a signal flare and waited. It wasn't long before our ride arrived. One of the airships that escaped the destruction of Canterlot appeared in the air above us. The name on its hull proudly read Sky Cruiser in bold lettering. It's actually not a military vessel but a civilian touring ship. We borrowed it because it wouldn't do to show up in a military vessel and announce our presence that way. Everyone was swiftly lifted aboard, and we hightailed it out of the woodlands. The changelings were secured in the hold, which has been turned into a makeshift brig. The civilians were all escorted to the observation deck. A spacious room with a large set of windows, looking out from the bow of the ship, giving a panoramic view of our surroundings. Every pony was given a simple but nutritious meal to help with their recovery. Spending so long being sustained by nothing but nutrient fluid meant their bodies would need a little time to adjust back to digesting solid foods again. After an hour or two, I joined Barricade and Rainsong as the sergeant addressed the now fed and somewhat rested civvies. I know you all probably have many questions, and I will try to address them as best I can. He said before he was interrupted by a stallion. Where are you taking us? The pony demanded in a slightly haughty voice. Bet you 10 bits he's a former Canterlot noble. I whispered to Rainsong. No dice, that's a sucker bet. She whispered back. I'm sorry, you are. Barricade asked the stallion. Red Marble. I'm on the Canterlot Building Commission. He said, puffing out his chest. Well, Mr. Marble, we are taking you all directly to the guard barracks at Evergrove for a medical checkup and debriefing. That will simply not do. I demand you take me directly to Canterlot. I'm afraid that's simply not possible. Nonsense, Canterlot has the finest hospital in Equestria. And I'm a very important pony. I simply refuse to be treated anywhere else. He said with a rising volume. Nevertheless, sir, we cannot take you to Canterlot. If you refuse to take me there, I demand to see your superior. It's not a matter of refusal. Then what is the problem? Others started to demand now. We cannot take you to Canterlot because there is no Canterlot. Dead silence fell over the room. I beg your pardon, said a mare with a very British accent and a gemstone cutie mark. What do you mean there is no Canterlot? Exactly what it sounds like, ma'am. The city is gone. Gone? Don't be ridiculous, what do you mean gone? Red Marble demanded. This may come as a shock, but Canterlot was destroyed. There is nothing left but dust and rubble at the foot of Canterhorn Mountain. You're joking, right? This is a joke. Well, it's certainly in bad taste, said the mayor. This is no joke, ma'am, the sergeant said somberly. During the changeling invasion, the city was overrun. We were trapped and overwhelmed. Princess Luna had no other option to stop the changeling army. So she leveled the city with her magic, destroying the invaders in the process. But I was there just yesterday. Red Marble protested. I don't remember any invasion. Sir, you and every pony in this room have been missing for several months. You've been asleep all that time. More silence. Did you say months? Another mare asked timidly. I'm afraid so. Barricade said solemnly. This is a nightmare. I want to wake up now. And that was my cue. We'd gone through this before with other groups of liberated ponies. Right now they were starting to panic and drown in a sense of loss and grief. So I subtly unleashed a cloud of spores into the air, designed to cause a mild sensation of euphoria to counteract their growing sense of overwhelming dread. Happy pills in aerosol form. It helped to calm their fraying nerves. So everything is gone? Asked the mayor with the gemstone cutie mark. My home destroyed, my family. My family. Your families are safe. Princess Luna and the element bearers got everyone out of the city. Rain Song said. Where are they now? Some ponies chose to go live with relatives in other cities and towns across Equestria. The rest of the citizens were relocated to new homes in the city of Evergrove. Evergrove? Red Marble said. I've never heard of this place. It's new, and it's where we're going. In fact, I said, gesturing to the window. We're here. The gathered survivors all turned to look out the bow window of the sky cruiser, and almost as one, their mouths fell open. Before them lay a city unlike any other in the history of Equestria. Towering trees, larger even than the biggest giant sequoia of Earth, dominated the skyline. Like the skyscrapers of Manhattan. Windows dotted the outside of them in many places, but that was only the start. Entire buildings were held aloft in their titanic branches. All of them made of wood, and connected by bridges, walkways, and platforms on the outside of the trees. Several Pegasus cloud homes also hung in the air between these behemoths. Tethered to them with willowy vines or held in place by spellcraft. Below these giants, many more smaller tree homes, reminiscent of the Golden Oaks Library, and a few more traditional pony homes dotted the forest floor. The traditional pony houses were in the minority. Swallowed in a sea of green. Firefly lanterns dangled on leafy vines above the cobblestone streets. Surrounding the city was a wall of impenetrable vegetation. A barrier of thorny vines several feet thick formed the basis of this protective wall, and rose nearly 12 feet high. The outside of it was dotted in all manner of unpleasant vegetation, both poisonous and prickly. The inside of the barrier was lined with soft moss, ivy, and colorful flowers. And at the center of it all, on a newly raised hill, was the castle of the two sisters. Restored to its former glory. The only stone building in the entire city. Colorful banners depicting the heraldry of the sisters hung from its many parapets. And flags danced in the wind from atop every tower. Except for the largest central one. Above the central tower floated a glowing magical symbol of Celestia and Luna's cutie mark. Welcome, to the city of Evergrove. It had taken weeks of effort to grow all these trees, and even more to keep them magically stable so they wouldn't wither and die from lack of nourishment. Their roots had to go deep and wide to support their enormous size. Using my earthen powers I gathered minerals from far and wide, crushed them until they were but fine powder, and spread that out through the soil for the trees to absorb. Magic did the rest. Together with over 50 specialized unicorn mages we hollowed out the trees in such a manner that it did not harm them. They wove spells into the wood much like those of the Golden Oaks Library, to make sure the trees would flourish, despite being lived in. I spent countless days and nights, working non-stop to ensure that every displaced citizen of Canterlot had a place to live. I'll be honest, at first I didn't want to do it. Hell, I flat out refused to. Until Luna literally started begging me. Watching best princess humiliate herself while looking like a kicked puppy meant my resolve got shattered like so many plates at a Greek wedding. I demanded one proviso though. The first noble who tried to toss their weight around while living here would immediately, and quite literally, be ejected from the city, to fend for themselves. I would not let their attitudes turn this place into Canterlot 2.0. After the sky cruiser docked at the tallest of all the trees that served as our new airship berth, I said my goodbyes to the team and swiftly descended to the ground. Flying on airships always made me feel faint, just like being out on the ocean. Too much distance from the ground and the lifeblood of the world. Besides, they didn't need me to help process the civvies and the prisoners. My job was done, and I longed to be home. Home was a clear field of grass at the foot of the hill on which the castle of the sisters stood. Using telekinesis I closed the ravine that once separated the castle from the rest of the forest, and then slowly raised it up. Similarly I closed off the cave to the Tree of Harmony under several metric tons of rock and soil. The only way to get to the tree now was through a hidden tunnel inside the castle itself. When I reshaped the landscape I made sure to keep an open area amidst the new tree houses, with lots of sunshine. And right in the middle of that sunlit patch of grass stood a small purple and blue wagon. "Sweetheart, I'm back," I said as I stuck my head inside the door. What I found was not what I expected. Trixie sat on her foldable bed with a bucket in her hooves. A smile tugged at her lips as she saw me. "Hey big guy, glad you're home. You okay, Trix?" "Just a bit of an upset stomach," she said, before her cheeks bulged and she tossed her cookies into the bucket. I moved over and gently rubbed her back, using my other arm to open the window and let some fresh air in. "How long have you been sick?" "It started just before you left on your latest mission, so a bit over a week now," Trixie thinks. "Why didn't you tell me you were feeling ill? I could have stayed to take care of you." Trixie didn't want to worry you. Trixie is a big filly. She can take care of herself. And your mission was important. Have you seen a doctor? She shook her head. Why not? Trixie doesn't like doctors. The last time Trixie went to see a doctor she got a shot in the rump. I smirked. I can think of a few other things to do with your rump. She slapped me with a hoof, giving me a grin. Stop it you. She giggled, before another wave of sick hit her. You may not like the doctor much, hun, but I'd feel better if you went in for a checkup. Come on, I'll go with you to keep any needles away from your rump. Wiping her mouth with a tissue she nodded faintly. You better keep that promise. Asterisk. The examination room smelled faintly of disinfectant. The ticking of the clock on the wall was the only sound as we sat quietly in front of Dr. Horse's desk while he went over the results on his clipboard. Well, doctor? What's the news? I ask. Is it feather flu? Asked Trixie. Honey, you're not a Pegasus, how could it be feather flu? Oh, right, she said sheepishly. No, it's not the feather flu, said Dr. Horse. I'm honestly not sure how to tell you this. Given the nature of your relationship, this is most unexpected. I rubbed my forehead. Could you just give us a straight answer, Doc? What's wrong with my mare friend? Did she catch some kind of disease from our time in Zebrica? No, actually, she's as healthy as a horse. If you'll pardon the expression. Then what's wrong with me? Trixie demanded. I suppose congratulations are in order, Miss Lulamoon. You're pregnant. Absolute silence filled the doctor's office. Come again, we both said in unison. I don't know how it's possible, considering the difference between species, but there's no mistaking the symptoms. You, Miss Lulamoon, are pregnant. We both fainted.